Hey, who wants to go fly through a hurricane? Not me. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today, in my nice, dry, safe basement, I'll be talking to you all about hurricanes. Why? Because I don't know. It's the people down in Florida right now. Tis the season. They're getting some pretty high winds and stuff, and I hope everybody does okay down there in the Sunshine State. But yeah, as it is where I am here in Windsor, Ontario, there's a bit of a breeze today, but no rain. It's a pretty nice fall day. And yeah, so I was as usual, I try to think of a topic for my show and can never come up with one, but I do at the last minute. So it's like, talk about the weather. So yeah, okay, I'm going to talk about the weather. When in doubt, you're bored, talk about the weather. Okay, so but I remember seeing years ago, back when I was in flight college stuff. When was that? Oh, geez, I'm trying to think. When did I graduate? 20 years ago, doing that. So, oh, hey, Daniel, welcome to the show. Yeah, so back then in our meteorology class, I remember they showed a video, and I don't think it was long ago enough to have a VHS tape. But anyways, we saw a video of how these airplanes would fly directly into hurricanes, and I was thinking, well, that's kind of cool. Like at the time, it was like, what, you can do that? And yeah, they do it all the time. Actually, in the United States, there's a couple of main people that fly into hurricanes. The U.S. Air Force, they do that, and also the notional NOAA. I always got to write that down. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So they have these planes that they go fly into hurricanes. They call them hurricane hunters, and they gather a whole bunch of data and everything about the hurricane so that they can track where it's going to go and evacuate people or issue warnings or find out the intensity of the storm. So it's kind of a I guess dangerous job. I'm not sure I'd really want to do that. And it's pretty bumpy too and turbulent. So I'll kind of explain, like my title says, how to fly through a hurricane. Okay. Oh, hey, Rich, welcome to the show. So let's. I on my whiteboard here, I pre-drew a hurricane. There you go. Or maybe it could be like that. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that the hurricane is always going in a counterclockwise motion. So like that. Why does it go in a counterclockwise motion, Graham? That is what you ask. Well, okay, I'll tell you a little story about that. So here in North America, our hurricanes are always going in a counterclockwise motion. In the southern hemisphere, your hurricanes, well, typhoons, whatever you want to call them, they're kind of interchangeable. They go in a clockwise motion in the southern hemisphere. And what's the reason behind that? Well, I never really thought about it. I just thought, you grow up and you hear all these. It's always the common thing you hear about. Oh, in Australia, if you flush the toilet, the water goes in a different direction. But it turns out that's wrong. It depends. So the way I found this out is because we were, what was it? I went to a party years ago, and so a bunch of us pilot guys are hanging around in the kitchen because all good parties end up in the kitchen. And then there was another guy, he was there visiting, and he was taking he actually works at Environment Canada now and he does weather forecasting. So this guy was like right into it. So he was taking, I think, a physics course, or I forget exactly what course he was taking, but he came up with this idea that he says it doesn't matter whether you're in the northern or the southern hemisphere. The thing that determines which way the water goes down your drain is the initial acceleration of the water. And so we're sitting around like, yeah, right. Yeah, right, buddy. And so, anyways, there's a bunch of dirty dishes in the sink. So we start, okay, it was one of those double sinks. So we took all the dirty dishes out of one sink and made a big pile in the other half of the double sink. And then we're filling up the sink with water. And he's like, no, check this out. So we fill it up with water and we plug it there. And then he's like, okay, which way do you want it to go down, clockwise or counterclockwise? And we're like, okay, so like clockwise count. And so if you start the water going in either direction, and then you pull out the plug at the bottom of the sink, it'll just continue going in that direction. So if you are up in, it depends on which way you start the fluid moving. So the funny thing there is that we're like, no way, try it the other way. No way, try it the other way. They're like, no, you did a trick. Let me try it. And so we're all sitting there uh, having a good old time in the kitchen and a few beers. and then the girl that owned the house, she came over and she said, "Oh, that's so nice of you guys to be doing my dishes." And we're like, no, we're checking to see which way a fluid moves because of the initial acceleration. And she wasn't too happy about that, but she didn't kick us out. Anyways, yeah, so it really matters which way it goes, just on the way that your air is working, like kind of like it behaves as a fluid. And so the initial acceleration of your hurricane, to make it in the northern hemisphere go counterclockwise, that initial acceleration is caused by the rotation of the Earth. So if you want to get fancy, it's called the Coriolis effect, but I don't want to get too much into that. It's kind of hard to explain. But basically, the Earth gets it going, and there we go. We start getting it counterclockwise. So that's why. Right now, we are going to talk a little bit about how, I don't know. And the thing is, you got to teach this stuff in not really hurricanes too much. When you're learning how to fly an airplane, you do learn about weather and high and low pressure systems and stuff. So really, what a hurricane is, it's just a very low pressure system. And so you always think about a cyclone. That is a low pressure system. So it's a cyclonic, or it goes in a cyclonic motion or an anticyclonic motion, whatever. However you remember that for the test, do it. So here we are. We got a great big, yeah. So we got a low pressure system here. There we go. There's your low pressure system. It kind of looks like the weatherman on TV, right? So around here, this is all going to be higher pressure. All around. Maybe there's a big one over here. There you go. You got some different, and it's all, so your high pressure wants to go equalized. So with the low pressure. So ideally, high pressure goes into the low pressure. And so that ideally the pressures the little molecules want to kind of equalize, but they never quite do. They kind of move around all the time. So yeah, so we got the low pressure system here. And what happens there too is that's over the ocean, right? So anytime, okay, everybody knows that hot air rises, right? So what happens is you got all this hot air in combination with the warm water, and the warm water holds its heat better than land does, actually. So that's why your hurricanes will last a lot longer than a tornado, because the tornado is over land. And then as soon as that temperature difference, sun goes down, you never really hear about tornadoes at night, because when the sun goes down, the the ground will cool off, and then there's not as much rising action there. But well, I think you probably could get tornadoes at night, but it's less frequent. So here we go. Yeah, so all of our our high pressure is going into the low pressure here. Got a whole bunch of bunch of like hot air rising here too. So hot air is rising, and it's got all that warm moist air going up, turning into condensation, and then that's where you get your rain. And it kind of comes up high. If I could do a 3D thing, okay, here we go. Here's my hurricane, and ooh, it's growing up here, and it cools off, and it dumps a bunch of rain around here, and then comes back down, and it kind of cycles like that. That's my 3D whiteboard for you. Okay, so you're thinking to yourself, why would why do I want to fly into the hurricane? You don't want to. It is very, very dangerous. But the people that do that at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the U.S. Air Force, like, they're trained for it. They have the proper type of airplanes for it. the proper equipment. You could even get icing buildup. You could probably, I don't know if you could get hail, possibly. You can get all kinds of weird stuff when you get all those high winds and pressure differentials happening. So it's a very bumpy ride and very dangerous, but it's actually quite easy to go into the eye of a hurricane. And that's what I learned on this little video years ago at school. And I've seen other YouTubes since. Actually, when I learned that in school, that was before YouTube was even around. Oh, showing my age. So if you want to fly into the middle of so you got all these like high winds and everything here, but in the middle, it's basically just a big updraft. Like everything's getting pushed in and up. So your winds here really aren't so much horizontal; they're kind of more vertical. You're just getting a big updraft there. And if you want to go in, I'll draw you a picture of an airplane flying into a hurricane. All right. Well, this is probably the best aircraft picture you've ever seen. There we go. There's my airplane flying right there. So all you got to do is you want to find the middle of the hurricane. You just keep the wind off your left wing over here. So if it's always going like that, regardless of which end, the thing is you could be flying like that. That wind is going to push your airplane around. But as long as you're moving forward, they could be pushing you sideways. But if you're moving forward a little bit, you'll eventually find the middle or the eye of the hurricane right in the middle, and you might end up getting pushed over here. It might push you all the way over here by the time you get into the middle, and then the winds are less. And if you want to get out, you just how would you get out? I guess the same thing. Just once you're past the eye. Oh no, you keep it off your right wing on the way out. Yeah, so on the way in, you got the wind is on your left wing. If you're going to fly on the way out, yeah, the wind would be on your right wing to get out. Ah, there we go. Think that one through. So, boy, that looks like an amazing graph or amazing diagram. But anyways, that's how you fly in and out of a hurricane. And so yeah, like I was saying, for absolute like safety considerations, don't try doing it on your own. Like the planes that the quick research I did on the internet before I came in, on the show was that the NOAA, they use a Lockheed P3 Orion, which is a 4-engine turboprop, so it's got turbine engines, but it's got the propellers on it. And the Air Force, they use the C-130 transport, but they're kind of set up specifically for collecting data inside of your hurricane. So they're very specially modified, and I don't know exactly how they're modified and stuff, but yeah, they go in there and I guess they drop these little sensors out of there, and it's got a parachute, and then it's getting all blown around, and then it shoots data back to the airplane, and they can record all the data about it. So if it's basically kind of like they drop, instead of like sending up a weather balloon, they kind of drop a thing on a parachute going down instead of up. And yeah, so they can get all kinds of information. What direction is it moving? And the thing is, when it comes to the fluid dynamics of air, they've been doing that for many, many, many years. And the more accurate data they can get from the middle, like the actual hurricane itself, they can feed that into the computer, and it just says, oh, if it's this speed at this altitude here, it's at this speed at this altitude here, here, here. They plug it all in, they make an equation, and then they can just model the whole hurricane and basically where it's going to go. And then they take that information, they feed it in with all the weather balloons that they're sending up around here, and they get a very, according to my buddy that works at the Environment Canada that does weather forecasting for a living, he said that like the upper winds are very, very accurate. It gets tricky when you start trying to forecast a little bit closer to the ground. You got water, you got terrain, you got pollution, different levels of moisture down at the ground level. But once you get up in the air, it's like it's very predictable. So they just need a few more sensors and stuff at the lower altitudes here to kind of figure out where it's going to go. And then you get water in your living room if you're living in Florida. But yeah, there you go. That's how you fly into a hurricane. Just keep the wing into the there. Keep the left wing getting. How would you do that? Okay, keep your left wing into the wind there on the way out. Keep the wind hitting your right wing. You'll find your way out. Okay, and it's going to be bumpy. And you put your carburetor heat on, and you put your bleed air on your jet or whatever you got to do. And I was kind of thinking about that too. Like, why don't they use jets for that? And why do they use these turboprops? And I was thinking, my guess is that if you're going to have that much turbulence there, you'd probably want something that has a little bit lower speed, and so something with like more of a flatter wing, not a jet delta wing, or like a kind of a swept back wing. That's designed for more higher speeds. If you got the higher speeds going into the higher turbulence, could put more stress on the airframe and everything like that. So you're probably going better off to have a lower speed, flatter wing. And for the engines, I think I don't know if they would be. I think the free turbine Pratt and Whitney type turbines, they're better for like bad weather because there's no the air intake is designed differently, and in extreme turbulence, the turbine part is separated from the propeller actually, so it can take a lot of changes, and it's not putting a lot of torque on any turbofan shafts and stuff like that. Boy, I'm talking all piloty, but anyways, if you're a pilot, there you go. You know what I'm talking about, maybe. But yeah, so that was about it. Don't stay away from hurricanes. And if you do get your flight canceled because of a hurricane, go up and thank the pilot because he just saved your life, or she did. You never know. Or the dispatcher that canceled it saved your life. So, no, I wouldn't want to be flying into any hurricanes. No, thank you. But I mean, now that said, it depends on the strength of the hurricane too. Because if it's not really that big of a hurricane, might be able to fly over the top if you got like some executive jet that can go to 40,000 feet, something like that. It might top out at 30 and you got a 10,000 foot clearance over the top of the hurricane and you might be okay. But still, I'd like to stay away from them altogether. Okay, and that's about it. So let's see what we got here for little comments. All right, so Daniel popped in. Hey, Daniel, just thought I'd say hi. Okay. All right, Wrench has a few little comments here too. All right, let's see what we got here. Topeka Airplane Museum has the Topeka, Kansas, right? Has the Navy version of the Super Connie that flew hurricanes in the 70s. Still a hurricane mapped on its consoles. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. What else we got here? It's fun to watch this experiment done by hucksters in equatorial countries. They do one walk across the equator and do the other going the other way. The bulls have small defect to assure. Yeah, so that's he was talking about the water going the different ways. Yeah, maybe hurricanes are really galaxies from a parallel universe. Who knows? each little water droplet is a planet. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. And what else we got here? Oh, and a quick change of wind could flame out an open jet engine. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too, and maybe like compressor stalls or something like that. So yeah, I just think those turbine engines, the free turbine Pratt and Whitney engines, are probably like some of the most reliable engines that are out there. And they're so reliable that I know that you're not allowed in Canada, I think in the States too, you're not allowed to have a commercial operation with passengers unless like with a one engine airplane. So if you had a jet with just one engine, no good. But these Pratt and Whitney, these free turbine engines are so reliable that the government has allowed you to have paying passengers if you just have one of those engines and like fly right over the ocean with it with one engine. I don't know. I kind of I'd be antsy about that flying one engine over the ocean, but yeah, they're very very reliable. Well, here we go. Excellent. Hey, Chad popped in here. All right. I didn't even read this. I'll read it right here. It's hard for me to tune into superpilotish streams because I always have some problems handling how awesome it is. Well, Chad, you're just going to have to try your best, dude. So, yeah, thanks for coming in here, Chad. Oh, that's right. And yes, Chad Elkins, CPA. I've interviewed him before, and he has a YouTube channel. It's the Chad Elkins. He does like a usual show. I always miss Chad's shows because it's like he's in Chicago and he's just like an hour different than me, and he goes on later. And I'm usually like going to bed like super early because I'm old, so I always miss Chad's show. But if you want to know anything about, especially if you're in the United States, you want to know about accounting, check out Chad's YouTube channel. Okay, yeah, and Wrench was talking about TBM 700 Pilatus PC-12. Yep, those are they have the Pratt and Whitney free turbine engines in them. Yep, those are like all the different TBM products too. There's different numbers. And then, hey, Harold, I haven't seen you in a while, bud. Welcome back. So, and thank you for the compliment. I do appreciate it. I was wondering where you went, man. So that's good to see you. Okay. Yeah, that is about it. So, what day is today? Pizza day. That's right. Friday's pizza day for me. I'm getting the za tonight. So excellent. And I'll be back on Monday. Might be a little fatter because of the pizza. You never know. Got to watch the weight and balance though. And yeah, I'll be back on Monday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And I'm just going to kind of go ahead and shut her down. So you guys have a great weekend. And thank you for watching. Bye.